All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to do part 2 here. If I can, I'm going to have this posted on the same day as the first part, but if not, you will see it 1 or 2 days later. I think it'll all depend on the upload/download time. We'll see what happens there. But I'm going to color the fairy and then do a really simple background behind our adorable teapot. So if you remember, we've got fairy villages that we colored up the teapot from. And then this is a separate set that I got from Kraftin Kimmie, and this is a different set of fairies, but I thought perfect. She fits in just right. So I added her on there. I did use a multi-liner on her shoes and her smile and her eyes. I am a person who's not a very good stamper, and I always have a stamp platform, whether it's a Tim Holtz one or my Misty, and they were already packed in moving boxes, both of them going to different locations, of course, one apartment in Des Moines and one in Alaska, but they were both in the boxes, taped up and disappeared. So I had to do some hand stamping, so I couldn't do multiple stamps, and so I didn't get super clean, clear black lines. But I used a multi-liner, went back and got those details that I wanted to have crisp, and the rest are not quite as important. So I am going to do some fun red hair on our fairy, and I'm going to start with a Y21. I like a good curly head of hair. It is fun to color. So I'm going to keep this first layer pretty light. I'm really just filling in. I could use a lighter color. YR31 is one of my favorites to base red in, but I'm using some stuff that's just kind of right in front of me, making it easy. And this is going to be very red hair, or kind of that carrot top look. YR14, and I'm going to do squiggles. So it's these little scribbles, really. And I can show you here in a second. I'll pull a piece of paper over and show you kind of what I'm doing in a larger version. And this first round goes all over her little head. So you can still see the yellow. It's just, you can see the area in between. Let's see, get a piece of scratch paper. I want to show you guys real quick. So what I'm doing is just scribbling. I call it squiggles. What is not is loops that are repetitive or scallops. It has some corners, it has some loops. It goes both up, down, side to side, angle to angle. So it's kind of all over. You either love it or you hate it. I happen to be a person who loves it, and I use it on several different types of areas that I want to make look kind of textured. So I've got a YR18. And what I'm going to do is I get darker, because this is going to go way dark, is now I'm going to focus those little squiggles into the areas to create some added shape. I appreciate she's got quite the poofy little do. But we're going to give her kind of that round shape. So it's going to be dark around her little face. Kind of hug that and then give some roundness to these other little sections. Then the last thing I will typically look for, if I can, is I will go back with one or two, try this. Let's do an E35 and get a little bit of an earth tone in there to kind of tone down a little bit of that orange. We still want it bright, but this will give her just a touch, so it's not quite the glow in the dark. All right. Now, like a lot of mine, if you want to soften that, you can go back and do one light pass with that light color that we started with. I feel like I dulled it down a little too much. This is what I do a lot of times with hair. I kind of keep plain. I probably should have used this instead of that E. This is a better one. There we go. So it's kind of a darker. There we go. Kind of fun. So that was a whole slew of colors. I used a Y21, YR14, YR18, YR24, and the E35. If I could take the E35 out, I would, but it is already on there. So there you go. And then, let's see, I might go ahead. We've got a lot of color going on, so I'm going to keep a little dress simple. I'm going to go back to the colors I used on the teapot. Got the V12 and then the V04. Bottom edge of the arms. A little tiny bit on that right hand side, a little more on the left. Remember, she's mostly getting some sunlight from up above, so we can keep the light source really simple. It's more about giving her some shape than anything else. And then I am going to use a touch of that BV20, just barely. Kind of flick just a tiny bit from her back out. And colorless blender kind of from the white part of the wings back in. You see where we're backing into ourselves into a little bit of a circle here, a little spot. Her skin is going to end up last, which is almost always what I do first. Makes me laugh. Get her little star. Magic wand is a must for our fairy friend. That definitely could use some sparkle if you're putting it, finalizing that onto a card. A little glitter or something. And then let's do, this is an E50, so really light skin tone. Now remember, I did the multi-liner on her eyes and her mouth. Multi-liner is Copic. It is Copic friendly, so I can color right over the top of it. But if I had colored that right now and gone back with my Copic markers, I can smear it. So you do have to give it like a few seconds. You can't just jump on it. It will smear. Okay, E01 coming in from the sides of her little face. She's got a cute round little face and up under her hair. Kind of the bottom edge of both those legs, a little on her hands. E50. And of course, because she's a sweet little fairy, we got to come back with a little peachy cheek. Let's see. Where did it go? Huh. I seem to be missing a marker. Let's see if it's over here. Yes. E9-3. I'm going to lay that right down on that. You can do like a tip to tip, and you could do a rosier color. You could pick more of a red. This to me works pretty good. Just enough to give her a cute little blush. That goes over here anyway. And then, let's see, simple background possibly. Let's do a grassy, some green. And then a sky. We'll do the grass a little brighter than the leaves. Excuse me, I am sorry. G40 is what I'm starting with. And I'm going to create kind of that horizon line. Now, I already know this is a full card front. So I am probably going to cut this down a little bit. So I don't need to go all the way out to the edge. But I'm just doing kind of an up and down, going in horizontal bands. And that is very purposeful. Think about how grass sits with those, the blades of grass are kind of a vertical. So we want to mimic that. And because I'm not doing this, because I'm not trying to fill it in to create smooth color, then I do, if I know I'm going to see those strokes, so I want to make sure it's going in a direction that is appropriate or that I like. So I'm making sure to go up and down, and I'm making sure to kind of go across in these horizontal bands. Then G4-3, I'm going to stick with my broad nib here. But now I'm not doing right all solid. I'm coming in and breaking it up. I've got some taller, some shorter, overlapping gaps. But now throwing in, I'll have to figure out kind of a little bit of a, how to sit that teapot in that grass here in just a second. One of the tricks with a technique like this is make sure to run all the way up against that image. And obviously you have to slow down a little bit, but if you don't go all the way up against the teapot, suddenly you have this halo effect and it just does not work. So you got to go right up against it. So you do have to slow down and get your marker going as vertical as you can, but that can be a little tricky. Now, if you want to switch on this last one into the brush nib, you can. And now we're just doing some little clumps here and there. The key to these things is randomness, and that actually takes practice. Most of us have this pattern. I have, my hand too, and I've been practicing it. I have my one little jump up in the middle, kind of to one side or the other, and kind of repeats itself. So I purposefully have to force my hand to change up what it's doing and then bounce around up and down so it doesn't end up too linear and regular. The part I like about using that brush nib for some of this is that then you get those thick and thin lines. So you have that variation that's happening kind of without you really making an effort for it to happen, which is really, really nice. So let's go ahead and get a little bit darker near our base. Kind of set this little guy a little more firmly into the grass, because we know there's going to be a little bit of a cast shadow underneath it, so we can kind of hint at that. Now, I realize this looks like a scribbly mess at this point, so I'm going to do two things. I'm going to find, if I can, my BV23, and I'm going to add some of that into that cast shadow area. And then I'm going to come back with my G40, open up that chisel nib again. And you could do more of a smooth, you could do more of a smooth background, and we could do more of that if we want to smooth this out. Not sure if I like the texture on this particular image as much as I thought I would. This is the problem with keeping this live and not voicing over. You guys are hearing all these funny sounds. Let's see if we can't smooth this out a little bit more for you guys. For me, I'm not sure I'm really caring for this as much as I was hoping. Gonna create a couple little hills instead. Every once in a while, you turn around and you're going, ooh, I might have to cut this out. This did not go as planned. This one's not really going as planned, so this might end up being a fussy cut routine, but you guys are seeing it live in action. To me, this is one of the interesting parts, though, with Copic, is that you really can kind of play around a little bit and a lot of times end up with something that you're a little bit happier with. Actually, a lot happier with that. I know it still has that scribble effect to it, but that has shifted enough that I'm doing okay with that now. Okay. Let's do something a little more predictable with the sky. Sorry, I'm entertaining myself, obviously. You guys are along for the ride. So we did a sky like this a little while back with a really simple, I've got my BG 000, and then we're gonna let some clouds happen as well, so we don't have to fill the whole thing in. So it does not need to be completely smooth. I'm using a circular stroke, and it feels like my BG000 is actually a little low on ink. So this technique is going to work really well since I need to refill it desperately as soon as I'm done. But I'm going to leave some fluffy white clouds, and I can do as many as I want. Again, it's better if you can have some that run up against the objects in your picture. It just makes it a little more realistic. The fun part is they really can be any shape. It's a cloud, right? Getting a little slower as I go around her so we don't bump into her. Come in here in these tiny areas. Okay. If you wanted to make her wings look a little transparent, you could add a touch of blue in there that we're seeing through the wings. I'll show you how to smooth that out here in just a second. But we'll finish up this side before my marker calls it kaputs. And this is definitely too dry. You should not let your marker go this far down. It should be flowing a lot more easily. All right. So it's not a smooth sky, but that's not what I was going for. And then what I can do now is come back in the areas that are more kind of solid blue without those clouds. I'm hitting kind of a second round real quick to reinforce the fact that those areas are cloud free. All right, I think that's going to be about it from this marker. And then I'm using my colorless blender right on the edges. And that's going to soften those edges just enough to make them look even more like fluffy little clouds. It's not going to need a whole lot, especially because my marker was running low. So kind of a real light pass on each of those. And then I'm going to hit her wing just a little bit too to kind of lighten up so it looks a little more transparent. Here we go. All right, everybody, we got her finished. Not sure about the ground, but I'm going with it. But I appreciate you guys stopping by, checking it out. I hope you've had an amazing time at the Kraftin Kimmie weekend and that you continue to enjoy the new release from May and are already awaiting excitedly your June release as well. Talk to you guys later, and I will hopefully be live on our next event. Thanks, guys. Bye.